Alright, so these are the supplies that I'm using for this male advanced pedicure. All of the supplies that I'm using here are on the supply list. And here is a close up to his feet. Looks like he already started to try to trim off his toenails, and then he's like, oh wait, I got an appointment. So I see that there are a few bulked toenails that we're going to have to debulk and even out. For the most part, the main parts is going to be his great toe sidewalls, just shaping those up well. He plays sports, so a lot of the toenails are kind of bent, and that's just due to impact of shoes and working out and such. Not too bad on the heels either. We will do a softening treatment, but other than that, it should be a pretty smooth process. So what I like to do is do before and afters. I highly encourage you to do this. This is going to be great for your marketing. People love to see what you can do, so that they know that once they sit in your chair that you will be able to take care of them the same way. So I'm using the steam to soften up. As you can see, it's starting to boil, and it should be releasing here shortly. There it goes. And this process has been extremely helpful to softening up the skin, and I even use it during manicures as well now. Alright, so I am using the exfoliating sugar scrub, the moisturizing sugar scrub from my Pedicure line, and it's going to soften the skin. And I do have a towel placed up under here, and then if you can see, I have a clear plastic mat that I use to just protect the floor. You want to use something that is not going to be hard to clean. If you're going to place something on the floor, you want to make sure that it's easy to clean. And I'm just massaging it into his legs. I'm even moving the steam up so that I can get a better angle for the steam, and just massaging it into his legs, and then also out his feet. I am massaging the scrub into his toenails, as well as the sidewalls, in between his toes, on his heels, up his leg, at least to the calf. That's where I typically stop. And just making sure that it is saturated. And I even give it a moment to just sit on his skin. This just allows for the product to do its job. Typically, when you are doing traditional pedicures, or at least how we were taught in school, you place it on there and then you typically rinse it off. It doesn't sit, okay? And what I have found is, if we allow it to sit, let the moisture lock in, it's going to be a lot easier to remove all of the dry cells that are on the skin and built up. It just makes it a lot easier. It makes the skin more pliable, is what I have found. And so just rubbing it in really helps. Plus, this is a therapeutic pedicure, so you want the person to be relaxed and basically get treatment that they don't normally get on a day-to-day basis, right? So typically a person is not spending this much time exfoliating. They're not spending that much time moisturizing. So this should be an experience for them. So what I'm doing now is allowing the steam to hit his skin, and again, just allowing the moisture to do its job and soften up the skin for us, making it more pliable. Then I'm also at the sink preparing the towels. In my studio, the sink's water gets really hot, And so it's really helpful that I don't have to lean on towel cabbies. But if you do, just make sure that it is, enough water in the towels to pull off the scrub. And so I have the towel saturated, and I'm about to use the towels to remove the scrub. When you are using the hot towels, you definitely want to do a heat check for your customer and make sure that the heat is not too much for them. I typically, just, check throughout, even with the scrub, just checking in with them. Hey, how's the texture? Is it okay? Some people are highly sensitive to texture, so you wanted to check on that as well. But he said that the towel was fine, and so I'm going in with the next towel. Making sure I wrap it all around the foot as well as the leg, at minimal covering every area that I have placed the exfoliation scrub. I'm also making sure that I am pulling down the towel and I'm massaging in a circular motion down the skin, down the leg, and as well as in between the toes and on the toenails, just to make sure that I pull all the scrub. I normally do this process 2 times and try to get as much as I can the first time, and then whatever is remaining on the skin, I go in and do that and grab it a second time. I still have my steam going, making sure that it's still, flowing with the process. As you can see, he's moving his leg. Another reason why I make sure I go in with the second time is just to make sure that it's not sticky or anything of that nature. It can be a little irritating for some people, so I do that. And then I also, you'll see me here in a moment, flip over the towel to make sure that it's not wet or anything under his leg. As you can see a closer picture, I'm actually using my fingers to go in between the toes. That's where the scrub likes to hide out. Hence, us massaging it into their skin, so it makes sense. But we just want to make sure that we do a detailed clean out, because once we go in with the moisturizing process, that can be a little irritating too. So if you have those little crystals on the skin, so we want to clean it thoroughly. After cleaning it thoroughly, I go in and get a fresh towel so that I can place it up under his legs. This is a dry towel, so it's nice and clean and dry, so that should feel comfortable for him. And then I go in with the moisture treatment. So I did the exfoliation, and then I go in with the moisture treatment and massage it all over. And when I'm doing the moisture treatment, I go up the calf and all around the leg and foot. And I'm making sure that I'm very intentional with my touch, doing a lot of reflexology motion and pressure point movements to make sure that this is a relaxing stance for them. And normally I do have the lights dim and different things of that nature. And then I have my client put on a eye mask to help protect them from my lighting that I need to see. But this is a very relaxing process. Anytime you are massaging and touching on toes and such, it can be very, very relaxing. So you want to set the atmosphere accordingly. I wanted to make sure that I gave you some visual on how I massage. How I'm being detailed in this video is how I am throughout every client. I do take into consideration everyone's health, right? So the pressure points and how I am massaging will vary, but I am making sure that I give them this invigorating massage. Like I said, this is a therapeutic pedicure, so I'm wanting to make sure that I touch all the senses, so I got my aromatherapy going. I'm giving them a nice detailed massage and touch. And then I'm also making sure, like I said, that they have their eye mask on. I'm then also offering them, a drink of water and or a little snack or something of that nature. So I'm just making sure that I give them a well-rounded experience. This is what's going to separate you from the rest. This is why people will return. This is why they will tell their friends. Typically, when it comes to male services, I get a lot of referrals from the females. So, it just says a lot about how you have cared for a person, that they are willing to go and share with other people, right? All right, so I will continue to show you some different angles and, just make sure that you're able to see how I'm flowing, okay? All right, now it's time for the callus care. And fortunately, this client, comes pretty often. And so, or at least they're on a schedule or routine. And basically what I tell the client is a routine is anywhere between 4 to 5 weeks. If you go past 6 weeks, it's kind of like we're starting over. when it comes to the therapeutic pedicure. So yeah, this particular time, this client went past the 6 weeks, so we did a therapeutic pedicure. But the first thing I do is use the softening heel treatment, and then I go in and use my fine side of my foot file. Now, depending on what the client needs, all right? So this is another reason why this is therapeutic, because it is a custom pedicure, all right? So what the person that's in front of you need, that's what you get them. And sometimes you need a little bit more, you need a few more supplies, and then in other instances you don't, all right? So this particular instance, I don't. And so it's pretty straightforward. He has a few spots more close to his great toe, and his heels are pretty soft. I do feel a little grit at the bottom, so I go in and just kind of smooth that out. But for the most part, he doesn't need much done. All right, let's get into this nail care. I am showing you here that his pinky toe is a little thickened, so we're going to debulk that in just a moment. I want to bring you a tad bit closer because I want you to see that it is a little bit thickened right there. Not much, but it's worth looking at and paying attention to. Again, this being a custom pedicure, you want to pay attention to as many details as you possibly can. He has a few thickened toenails on the other foot as well, so we'll get those adjusted. And I'm going in with my ceramic bit, and I'm making sure that I use my pinky to keep me steady. And I am moving my hand and moving his foot however I need to make sure that I'm protecting his skin and making sure that there is no burning sensations or anything of that nature. And then I'm also just feeling around, because you don't want to overdo, but you want to make sure that you smooth out as much as possible, so you need to feel it. I see a little bit on this toe, so I go across it and just make sure that it's nice and smooth. These are the things that, the customer is hoping that you pay attention to. They may not know how to verbalize this, but you don't want your socks being snagged because of your toenails being, sharp at the free edge, right? So these are things that the traditional places may not think about, but because you are a foot care expert and you have taken training such as this to go beyond what you've learned in school, you pay attention to details like this, and people can tell a difference, okay? They can tell a difference, especially a male pedicure, because you don't polish. You can tell a difference of your toenails with someone who has paid attention to the details. All right, so I got my ceramic cuticle bit, and I'm going to go around and start his cuticle care. And I just am in love with the after look of once you use a cuticle bit, because it just moves out all of the tissue around the nail and exposes the nail more, and it just gives it a nice clean look. Now for males, it doesn't really make much of a difference, but you can definitely see a great difference when you polish a woman's toenails who barely have nail exposed. This removes the extra skin off of the toenail and just exposes it just a little bit more, especially, like I said, if they have really, really short toenails. I'm just going around. This is in the forward motion on my e-file, and I go in the reverse motion as well, and I am not dragging this on the nail plate. Okay, I am focused specifically on the skin around the lateral fold around the nail plate. All right, lifting it up and allowing it to expose more of the nail plate. Throughout this process of using this ceramic cuticle bit, you may see me go into the corners and kind of maneuver the skin around there with the bit. This is again just helping me lift up the very nook and crannies around the toenail. Sometimes it's really, really hard to get, but that again, that attention to detail is what we want to take. I'm going in with my buffer and just smoothing out the skin and just also removing what's lifted. Oftentimes we don't even need to use our cuticle nippers. We can just buff over the skin, especially after we have went through my 3-step softening process and moisturizing process. Okay, so here I am wanting to get you closer to see, again, all about the details, making sure that that little corner of his toenail is trimmed and I'm not digging into the sidewalls. I'm basically at the free edge of his toenails and rounding off that area. And you see that I'm placing my thumb to see how much wiggle room I got to trim, okay? Now, for guys, I want them to go round in their shape, but I don't want it to be extremely short, but short enough for it to not grow back like a week or two later, especially since they don't come back as frequently. So I like to go to like a little bit under the ball of their toenail. And then I'm also using my thumb to kind of just gauge what needs to be cleaned up. I do the same thing for this particular toenail. And oftentimes, if you can't see it and visualize what you need to cut, you often cut too much or cut too little. So this is why I kind of use my thumb to kind of gauge. You can also use a orange wood stick to kind of gauge your trimming point as well. Again, always see the toenail at the end at this point before you start cutting, so that way you know exactly where you want to cut. All right. All right, I've been switching back and forth, just showing you how I trim each toenail, and I'm about to get into the shaping of the toenail, so I'm bringing you a tad bit closer. I want you to see how I angle my file to make sure that I'm not cutting the client. I'm also repositioning his other toenails or his other toes so that way I won't bump the file against his foot. All of these details are very important. And then I'm going around and just shaping and just rounding off the corners of the toenail. All right, now I'm about to go in and go around the toenail and the lateral fold to make sure that all of the toe jam is out. And I'm bringing you a tad bit closer so you can see me do this in detail. I love this particular tool because it allows for me to just get into the nook and crannies and get all of the pterygium off the nail plate and the sidewalls.
And then because it has these little grits on them, they allow me to get it in a few swipes. All right, and I'm making sure that I check in with my client, making sure that they are not uncomfortable in any way. And as I'm, moving around and maneuvering the toenail, I'm making sure that I can see. I'm also wiping off excess skin that has come up so that way I can see exactly where the tool needs to go. And I'm being very intentional. I have used this tool on myself, and that's what I suggest you to do as well, so you know how much pressure you need to use and how to maneuver the tool properly without damaging the customer. It's very important. This little part right here really trips up people. They think that they have an ingrown toenail when in actuality they have a toenail that just needs to be shaped properly. But a traditional nail file won't fit in that area. So they must use a tool like this when they're getting their pedicures done. And oftentimes this particular tool is not used in traditional places. So that's why experts such as yourself need to use these type of tools, and that's how you're able to assist your customer, and you could possibly be saving them from a surgery because they think they have an ingrown toenail. Right now that I have cleaned around the toenail, I'm about to go in and just do some detailed work around the skin and just smooth it out as much as possible. Okay, so we may not be able to get all of it, but let's do as much as we can. And so I use my hand nail file to just buff against the skin, again making sure that I check in with the client and the pressure is good. And I'm basically going against the grain of wherever the skin is growing. So if it's growing downward, I'm going upward. If it's growing upward, I'm going downward. And then you can use a ball bit such as this to do the same thing. I like to teeter-totter back and forth. You play with it amongst yourself and or a family member. That way you can kind of get used to it as well.
right, I am continuing my process of cleaning around his toenails and just making sure everything is nice and even and smooth. And I am, taking the approach that I feel is least invasive, yet it is getting me the results that I want. Okay, I have done some very detailed work on his toenails, and I still have a little bit more to go. Again, just make sure that you are confident in using your tools and supplies around you, especially the non-invasive ones like the file and the nail buffer. And the reason why I say being confident and comfortable is because, as you see, I am using the file and the buffer to help me smooth around the toenails, and I'm not having to be invasive. I'm not having to draw blood, I'm just simply cleaning around his toenails. And these things just help everything look good for a longer period of time, which is really, really good for the customer. Another reason why I take the approach of using the files and the buffers and only using the cuticle nippers when necessary, and going around and using the metal tools efficiently, but yet not invasively, not, ultimately trying to dig for gold around the toenails. One of the major reasons why I do that is because of the client's health, okay? Not everyone goes to the doctor consistently. So some people have health challenges, yet they don't even know that they have health challenges, let alone those with diabetes and heart conditions and different things of that nature, prenatal care, all of that. It plays a role in how we want to care for their feet. So you can even take it a step further and only use orange wood sticks as opposed to metal implements. You can only, you can use the files and the buffers versus the nippers and different things of that nature. All right, so my final steps are going to be just me feeling around his foot, making sure I didn't miss a spot. And if I did, I go in with my file and buffer and just smooth it out. And then after I do all of that, I take some alcohol and wipe down his foot. There is a such thing as silent cuts, and so you want to make sure that you use the alcohol to seal and get off any bacteria or anything of that nature that's on the nail plate or from the nail plate or in between the toes, all of that stuff. So I use anywhere between 91% and 100% alcohol to wipe his foot down. All right, and last but not least, I go around his foot with some moisturizing oil and just make sure that everything looks nice and good for him. And that is the end of the service.